Hello, and welcome to the Biomass Magazine podcast. I'm your host, Anna Simet, and on this episode, joining us is Sam Schutte of Synthica Energy. Sam, good to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So I think maybe as a starting point, your company is Synthica Energy. You're in the anaerobic digestion sector. Why don't we begin by having you tell our listeners a little bit more about your company and its mission?
Yeah, absolutely. So Synthica, like you said, is an AE developer, owner, and operator, focusing on producing RNG from what in our space is called organics. So we focus on food waste, industrial manufacturing, byproducts, co-products, things like that, which is sort of an emerging space in the market. But we build facilities focused in major markets, and that's what we're developing is a lot of facilities in underserved major markets to capture all of the organic waste streams coming out of those sectors and produce renewable natural gas.
How long have you guys been around?
So we started the company in 2016, so I guess it's going on sort of around 7 years now.
Okay. So, Sam, let's say there's a potential client listening. And if they have an organic feedstock that they're wondering about, will this work for AD? Is this right for our operation? Could you kind of run us through the steps involved after they, initially engage with your company?
Yeah, absolutely. And first off, for a customer like that, I mean, there's really three big values that we offer, right? One is, proximity. A lot of these types of companies, they want to make a more sustainable choice. They want to work with a green outlet for their wastes, but or their byproducts, but those are often very far away for them to haul and truck to. So that's part of our solution is just basically being nearby their operations in these major markets, such as, Houston, San Antonio, Atlanta, Cincinnati, other markets we're developing in. The other is flexibility because we can take just about any possible feedstock, type of feedstock, solids, liquids, depackaging. We do a lot of those. And basically what we do, I guess I'll also say affordability. We are much more affordable than other sort of options out there like waste to energy and incineration and stuff that people are using, especially when you combine in that locality and all that hauling. But for those types of customers, I mean, when we engage with you first and foremost, we do a waste audit and learn about what you've got. Where is it going? How far away is it going? Because we want to get a good idea of obviously if it could fit into our recipe. Our recipe for digestion is what keeps the plants operating well and is going to make them, long-term viable, reliable outlets. And then, we work through that through laboratory testing to really find out all that data. Obviously use whatever data the customer's given us. And then we work through some form of agreement to make sure that we're all getting what we expect out of that relationship so that, the customer doesn't have to worry that they're going to have to switch outlets every year or two, which is a real thing for a lot of our customers. And that we can count on it from an energy production side and a sort of feedstock recipe side again to be a long-term partner with them.
So one of your focuses, I was on your website, is food waste. Scanning our RNG map, we put out a map every year. It lists facilities operating and under construction. There are far less food waste to biogas or RNG facilities than one would expect. So why do you think that is? And do you think that's changing?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Like you said, most facilities out there right now, when you look at RNG, are dairy that are dairy digesters, landfill, which aren't really digesters, but just capturing landfill gas, right? Or municipal, sewage gas, basically. I think, part of that is because it takes a lot more sales effort and sort of technology commercialization effort to bring a food waste organics facility online. Not just from a contracting side, but from an engineering side. But on that sort of business side, I mean, you think about your typical plant might have 30 or 40 contracts with 30 or 40 customers in order to supply those feedstocks. A lot of times that's a lot of negotiation and just technique and approach to be able to close those deals. Whereas, a lot of, if you look at dairy facilities, they may just have one feedstock contract with the one dairy they're building at, right?
That
And
makes
that's
sense.
changing. And that's changing over time a little bit as you get sort of like multi-dairy places. But even then, it's, a handful, right?
Hmm.
And then I think it's also just, the technology side is none of the technologies employed at those sort of, or not none of, but the technologies employed at those sort of facilities is missing a few core pieces to really be able to handle some of the variability of food and organic waste streams that we see.
Hmm. That makes sense. So, what would you say? What is the current project development landscape like right now for these facilities in the US? Taking into consideration permitting, financing, policy support, and what do you think is the most challenging aspect of the process right now?
Well, I mean, the most challenging aspect is always the feedstocks, right? It's the part that I think that, again, it's the most onerous and takes the most work. And I think that's where we've got a leg up and sort of a good lead on most other companies. But there definitely can be a challenge from a zoning and permitting side. You have to really be smart. And I think we've developed a real matrix here at Synthica to figure out what the right kind of sites are, right? Because, you're not building out on a farm in the middle of nowhere. You're
Right.
building in urban environments, and there's a whole range of, both regulatory and technology sort of burdens that places on us as developers that others don't have.
Mm.
Um, but I think that, that's the opportunity for us, and why we're so excited to scale out not only our technology and our business and everything else, is because we think that it's a really viable solution, and we think that we're approaching it in a way that's unique and better, basically, to be able to scale out. So we
Mm.
think there's going to be a lot of development in the space in the next 5 to 10 years,
Mhm.
for sure.
So, how many projects do you guys have right now operating? And then, what does a typical project development timeline look like right now on average, or is it pretty widely varying?
Well, so right now we have a plant in Cincinnati that's under construction,
Hmm.
that is supposed to be, or targeting to be online in the first half next year, basically the summer next year.
Hmm.
That's through a joint venture we have with UGI Energy Services, which is our partner for that plant. And then we have basically what we're calling our phase one projects outside of that,
Hmm.
which are a plant in Lebanon Junction, Kentucky, which is just south of Louisville. And that's really like in the bourbon distillery region of Kentucky. So we're focusing a lot on distillery wastes. It's a fairly large plant, roughly twice the size of the Cincinnati plant. And then we also have plants in permitting right now in Houston, San Antonio, and Rome, Georgia, and are also working on getting permits in on a plant towards it in sort of in the New Orleans area in Louisiana. So these are all really, markets where there's a ton of manufacturing going on, but they're really underserved in the marketplace. And those, basically, the timeline for those, since, like I said, almost all of those are in permitting. The Kentucky plant, actually, we're going to make an announcement this week, was awarded its construction permit. So
Hmm.
that's now permitted. And, the construction timeline for those is, around a year, something like that, depending on if you can get equipment to show up and so forth, which has been
Right.
it's been the challenge in
It
nowadays,
has.
and
Hmm.
for just about anybody you talk to. But I think all in all, our goal is, in the next 12 to 18 months to break ground on all of those phase one facilities, so that they're all kind of being built in a stacked order. And that's kind of the timelines that we see in
Yeah.
general as we go to market.
Okay. You guys got a lot going on. Very exciting. Well, Sam, this has been really interesting. Is there anything else that you want to add before we wrap things up?
No, I mean, I just appreciate you having me on. And as you said, I mean, definitely for customers out there in the organic space that are interested in talking to us, something we're spending a lot of time on our next sort of what we call phase two plants. So plants that'll be launching a little bit farther than 1 year out is a lot of co-located facilities. So, if there's customers out there that have a pretty big waste stream who, want to reach out to us, we're working with several now that, some of these folks have hundreds of thousands of tons of material. And we're, whether or not we are nearby, next to, or reasonably near their
Hmm.
facilities, those are the type of customers we're talking a lot to right now. that can serve as kind of an anchor tenant, anchor client with us, if you will.
Mhm.
And be happy to talk to anyone that wants to reach out.
Okay, perfect. Well, Sam, thanks so much for joining us today. I really enjoyed our discussion, and I hope you will keep us in the loop on what Synthica is up to.
Absolutely.
And to our listeners, I hope you enjoyed this discussion too. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time.